Hi, I'm Peter.
And I'm Will.
And you're watching Anderson Jazz Jams.
Episode number 12.
We want to thank our Patreons for giving as little as $1 a month, and you can find the link in the description below.
This week we'd like to play a song composed by Bernie Miller, and it was played by the great Jerry Mulligan. It's entitled Bernie's Tune.
This week on Technique Tips, we're going to talk about playing the Rhapsody in Blue Gliss on the clarinet.
Now, although this is a very specific musical piece where this is used, it actually comes in handy a lot with playing the clarinet, just with bending notes either up or down. So that was the beginning, again, of the Rhapsody in Blue Gliss. To achieve this glissando, or smear as it is called, we need to use two different techniques simultaneously. We want to be using our fingers to bend up by slowly curling them off of the keys, and we also want to be using our throat. Starting in the very low register in the first partial, I just play a chromatic scale, and then by the time I get to the third partial, which is the B, I can actually start the smear. What I'm doing is slowly pushing my fingers off of the keys. Next, as far as the throat technique is concerned, I'm just going to demonstrate something starting from a high C. And for this technique, I'm not using my fingers at all. I'm really making inside my throat the change between E, I. So for this glissando, we really want to do the opposite. We want to be going I. So that's a short lesson on how to achieve the Rhapsody in Blue glissando on the clarinet.
This week on Improve Your Improv, we're going to talk about learning melodies. This might seem like a basic thing, but people always ask me, well, how do I learn to improvise? I'm not good at making things up. When you're improvising in jazz, you're not making things up. You're more like an author who's writing a book and drawing upon all the different vocabulary and phrases that they've built up. The more songs you know, by George Gershwin and Duke Ellington, Harold Arlen, Bix Beiderbecke. The more melodies that you learn, the more you're going to be able to improvise and bring all these things into the music.
And when you choose the songs that you learn, don't try to reinvent the wheel. Really choose composers that over the decades and centuries have been accepted to be the best composers, and you really want to draw from them. These greats are going to really give you a lot of beautiful material to work with when you're working on soloing and playing jazz.
For things you don't learn in music school, we're going to talk about getting your horn serviced. You know, we all don't want to go to the repair shop. It's kind of a chore and it costs money. You would be surprised how we can get used to playing our instrument even when things go wrong. Sometimes we think it's us. It could be that there's a leak. My brother and I try to go get all of our instruments serviced by a professional repairman as often as we can.
Very careful as much as possible to keep your instruments in tip-top shape. The G sharp key right here sticks very often, as well as the low C sharp. So every time you play or you're on a performance, make sure those keys aren't sticky. And also, of course, swabbing your instrument, which we've talked about previously, and just making sure that none of the posts or keys get hurt at all when you're putting it back in the case or things like that. So that actually goes a long way with making sure that there are no leaks on your instrument or anything not working properly.
This week on Jazz Hangouts, we're going to talk about a great venue in Hollywood, Los Angeles, California, and it's called Vibrato, and it was started by Herb Alpert. So Vibrato is just a wonderful venue that my brother and I have performed at a number of times. We just played there this past September. On their kind of schedule and roster, they've got great artists performing there. Actually, when we were there last year, we met a great flute player named Hubert Laws, who came to hear us play. He lives in LA, and also the former principal flutist in the LA Philharmonic also came.
Now we're going to head over and do one of our Patreon Plus videos that we do every week, and all of our Patreons who give as little as $1 a month can check them out. So we'll be right back. For this week's Lick of the Week, I've chosen something that's based on the whole tone scale. I use it a lot in my improvising, not only because it's a really fun kind of mathematical thing to practice, but there's many different ways the whole tone scale can be played. And this is one of my favorites, and it's used by people like Lester Young in the swing era, Bud Powell, who's a great bebop player. And I'm It's based in 3-note clusters, which makes it, if you're playing eighth notes, it automatically syncopates the line, because if you play the first one, then the second cluster will be on the fourth eighth note, which will be on the and of 2. So that kind of makes it already have a jazzy kind of syncopated feel. And you can also go downward.
This week on Cats You Should Know, we're going to talk about one of our friends who's a wonderful guitarist named Pasquale Grasso. He originally comes from Italy, now he's living in New York City, and he won the International West Montgomery Guitar Competition. He's also performs every Monday night at Mesro Jazz Club in New York, and he's just an incredible player. He's really steeped in the traditions of the great pianists Art Tatum and Bud Powell and Barry Harris.
He's not only our friend, but he's taught us a lot of music, and check him out on YouTube, and he also has a lot of solo guitar tracks on iTunes and Spotify.
We're going to put all of our Patreons on the screen, and we really appreciate their support to help run this channel every week. And we want to encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also click the notification bell and leave us a comment in the comment section below. We also welcome people sending us videos with comments or questions so we could potentially feature it on the channel. We really have fun every week here on Anderson Jazz Jams, and we want to thank you for tuning in. So we'll see you next week.